tilapia, milkfish, shrimps in our area, which is about 300 hectares of water area. I'll start with bangus. We get our fry from our sister company, which is Marine Fish Hatchery. And we grow this in our nursery ponds. We grow it to a size of a 1 gram fingerling, and this will be transferred to grow out. It will be grown for baby for the size of 150 grams, 200 grams, or 500 grams size. We both have ponds and sea cages which we grow this fish from. This is harvested and brought to the plant for processing.
Our operation basically involves fish processing. We start the day with receiving the fish, more or less about 15 tons per day. We receive it at around 6 in the evening. We sort it, classify it according to its size, and then we let it chill. After that, we got the fish, we eviscerate the fish, cut it into butterfly style, and after that, we debone the fish. After deboning the fish, we have it either marinated, smoked, or directly packed as deboned fish products. Then after we pack all the marinated and smoked products or deboned products, we then blast freeze it for at least 4 to 6 hours. After blast freezing it, we pack it in cartons, then place it in cold storages with a temperature with at least minus 18 degrees Celsius. After placing the products inside the cold storages, we then wait for the orders, and then the supply chain will take charge of shipping the products to that has ordered the product.
Alson's Aquaculture Corporation is the producer of best tasting bangus in the country under Sarangani Bay brand. We are in this business for almost 30 years now, and we produce bangus or milkfish in different variants like unseasoned, marinated, smoked, relleno, embutido, and tocino, as well as bottled in oil. These are our products that we produce with utmost care, quality, and we assure 100% customer satisfaction. Our products are available in domestic and international market. And for domestic, for local, we deliver our products nationwide, Luzon, Visayas, and in Mindanao. And we are available in the major supermarkets like SM, Robinsons, Rustan's, SNR, and Gaisano, and other major supermarkets in major cities. While for international market, we are available in the US, Canada, and Asia for Japan, Singapore, and Australia. Also in Europe, in Italy, United Kingdom, and Netherlands, and in Middle East, also especially in UAE, in Dubai, and Qatar.
We also followed standard processes, standard procedures to see to it na good quality from the start, receiving up to cartooning process. Saka yung product natin is FSC certified. We have also certificate from EU. We are also a halal certified brand.
Dito tayo ngayon sa sa tilapia hatchery ng Alsons. We produce about 1.5 million fry every month for our own use. Sinisid natin sa grow out na lahat lalaki para malalaki. ibang projects na under sa akin, yung catfish grow out, research and development. Sa ngayon, yung research development natin, crab hatchery, saka milkfish na Indonesian model na hatchery.
We also have tilapia. These are sold primarily for the local market, although we also have value-added tilapia which is sold in the Manila market. These are distributed with our retailers, distributors, and wholesalers in the fish ports of Jensan and Davao. And this is concentrated mainly in Mindanao for now, but we are extending up to the Visayas. We also grow shrimp or vaname. This is the white leg vaname, which is grown up to 13 to 14 grams and sold locally and in Manila. All in all, we grow about 5,000 tons of fish in our 320-hectare farm in Alabel and about 1 million kilos in our sea cage for bangus in Kapatan.
Even with this market, we are still continuously improving our operations to serve and cater the increasing demand of our products all over the world.
Hello, and welcome back to another edition of India's Small Giants, where every week we take you through the exciting success stories of emerging enterprises all across India. This week, we share the stories of two very diverse pharma companies, a solvent manufacturer, and an aquaculture initiative that is changing millions of lives. Our first giant today is a perfect example of dedication, perseverance, and hard work. He has single-handedly created a blue revolution in Gujarat. He has won the Best Farmer Award, the Best Fish Farmer Awards, and many other feathers in his cap tell this man's incredible story. Join us as we see how he did it.
The success story of Mayank Aquaculture began with two small aquaculture ponds near Surat. Dr. Manoj Sharma started his career at a very young age as a technician. He started his business with just rupees 500. After 3 years of hard work, he was able to convince local farmers of Dandi village and the officials at Department of Fishery, Gujarat, to invest in shrimp culture.
Mayank Aquaculture Private Limited was initiated in 2005 to impart technical know-how to the Surat-based farmers. Then slowly we have also started our own farm in 2006 with 10 hectares. And today we have developed more than 50 hectares for our own. In 2011 and 13, even Mayank Aquaculture Private Limited had signed an MOU with Gujarat government to establish 500 hectare shrimp farm. This holy river Tapi has a very big importance in my life. When I landed in 1994 in Surat, there was no shrimp ponds, there was no aquaculture activity. So the only survival and my hope was this river. The fishermen from this river used to collect freshwater prawn seeds called Macrobacum rosenbergi, and they used to supply to the freshwater reservoirs and lakes and farmers. So I used to give them the technique how to identify the purity, and per day they used to give me 200, 300 rupees. That's how I survived up to 95, 96 till the 4 ponds of shrimp farm started in Dandi.
140 किलोमीटर दूर नारेश्वर है, वहाँ पे 200-300 रुपए कमाने के लिए भी इनको जाना पड़ता था. तो वो हम लोगों का जो स्टार्टिंग का पीरियड था वो बहुत स्ट्रगल किया है हम लोगों ने, दिन रात मेहनत की हुई है.
Basic problem during my struggle period was the awareness. Nobody was knowing the aquaculture is also a part of agriculture and shrimps can be grown in the pond. So convincing them shrimps can be grown in your wasteland, which is totally affected by salt, was a big challenge.
His vision and dedication transformed the coastal wasteland into a viable shrimp farming business, which is changing lives for thousands. Dr. Manoj did his PhD in shrimp farming and developed the concept of satellite shrimp farming in Gujarat. Shrimp farming has created a coastal blue revolution, and its impact is being felt in the taluka and state.
What we started with 4 pond has resulted into 5,600 pond in entire area, giving direct opportunity to thousands of people and indirect opportunity to more than 22 villages. It has changed the life of million people in South Gujarat. Gujarat has the second largest brackish water land, more than 3.75 lakh hectares. The present state development is 1.5%. Still, it is producing more than 1,200 crore shrimp annually. If next 10 years, if 50% of this land can be converted into shrimp ponds, this will provide direct employment to more than 2 lakh people and indirect employment to more than 10 lakh people. Aquaculture has the potential to feed the world beyond 2050, and even compared to agriculture crop or other crops, it has a very good return on investment and farm. In coming time, I am very keen to start our own processing plant to support the development of shrimp farming industry and to also develop a state-of-the-art export house to help the farmers.
Aquaculture products, especially shrimp, have a great demand in the international market. The state government recently announced a package to create a coastal belt in areas having high potential, and that production of shrimps should be given priority status.
Shrimp farming has really brought a tremendous change in the coastal area. Generally, coastal areas are not properly linked with the infrastructure in the form of potable water or the electricity or the road connectivity. Since shrimp farm has gained an immense pace in last 10 years, all the 20-25 local villages of Olpad Taluka has a greater connectivity by the roads. They have very good electricity because all the modern shrimp farms requires electricity to run aerators, to run water pumps. I think it has a power to feed the world and to support the livelihood to the coastal people.
One single man who has created an industry out of coastal wasteland where none existed before, and in doing so, he has created jobs and hopes for thousands of people, perhaps even millions. Our next India.
With a vast coastline of over 8,000 kilometers, India is home to a thriving marine industry, with hundreds of thousands of fishermen harnessing the rich waters from the coast. The Indian marine products export has become the 4th largest marine exporter and the 2nd largest aquaculture producer in the world.
See, the Indian seafood export sector has been probably one of the fastest growing export sectors from the country. However, the remarkable achievement of the Indian seafood sector is that today it is the single largest supplier of shrimp to the United States.
The Government of India, with the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, has come out with the new agri-export policy, which is aimed to double marine exports by 2024.
The future of Indian seafood exports lies in aquaculture. And in my opinion, we need to do 3 things. Number 1, we need to take aquaculture into new areas. Number 2, we need to diversify aquaculture by bringing new varieties of species. And thirdly, we have to enhance the productivity of our aquaculture from the current levels of about 5 metric tons per hectare to 10 metric tons per hectare.
There was a time when normal meant normal. Now, we have a new normal, one that keeps us and our produce safe, one that assures our buyers and their customers that only the best reaches them day in and day out. We ensure that every step of our producer's journey is done right so that you are assured of the finest, safest marine products, ensure the safety and quality of the products. Let's start with the product sourcing. safe produce now moves on to processing. Now let's move on to the ports where the product is shipped safely. We ensure that the product that reaches you is safe and healthy. The new normal is our normal.
Good afternoon. Excellencies, friends from government and private sector, senior officers from the Department of Agriculture and the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, headed by Undersecretary Cheryl Ching Natividad Caballero. I understand there will be other officers from the Department of Trade and Industry. Ladies and gentlemen, friends from the Indian community here in the Philippines and back in India, good day and mabuhay. Allow me now to formally proceed with this inaugural agribusiness conference jointly organized by the Embassy of India in Manila and the Philippine Chamber of Agriculture and Food Incorporated, or PCAFI. For purposes of recall, sometime in the first quarter of 2021, the Philippine Chamber of Agriculture and Food conducted its quarterly general membership meeting. And we were fortunate to have as one of the guests of honor the Ambassador of India, His Excellency Shambhu Kumaran. In his message, the Honorable Ambassador emphasized on strong cooperation between our two countries with strong mutual interests, particularly in the agricultural sector. As part of, and to quote the Ambassador, a people-centric partnership. Special topics mentioned in further discussions with the Ambassador centered on agri-technology, financing, trainings, and manufacturing of specialized farm equipment. Thus, today marks the start of the journey that first encounter between Ambassador Kumaran and his team and around 90 agribusiness leaders provided the strategic directions for the strong cooperation between our countries. For this inaugural conference, we will hear and interact today with 6 experts in the field of marine fisheries and aquaculture, focusing on these topics, namely canning and tuna, aquaculture and shrimps, and seaweed agribusiness. At this point, may I now call on Mr. Danny Fausto, President of the Philippine Chamber of Agriculture and Food Incorporated, to welcome everybody to this gathering.
Thank you very much to our moderator and PCAFI Executive Director, the former Assistant Secretary of the Department of Agriculture, Mr. Doy Salapu, His Excellency Ambassador Shambhu Kumaran, the Ambassador of India to the Philippines, His Excellency Ramon Bagat Singh Jr., the Philippine Ambassador to India, to the Philippine Department of Agriculture Undersecretary, the beautiful Ching Caballero, our Chairman, Philip Ong, Chairman of PCAFI, to the First Secretary of Economic and Commerce of the Embassy of India in Manila, Mr. Nisikant Singh, distinguished speakers and resource persons of the conference, officers and members of the Philippine Chamber of Agriculture and Food, our friends from the Fisheries and Aquaculture sector of India, our colleagues and distinguished guests, friends and associates of PCAFI, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon in the Philippines and good morning in India. First of all, I would like to welcome you and thank you for attending the first India-Philippines virtual B2B conference on marine fisheries and aquaculture industry. As mentioned by our moderator earlier, in the last general membership meeting of the Philippine Chamber of Agriculture and Food, Inc., last March 26, 2021, we were honored of having His Excellency Ambassador Shambhu Kumaran as one of our guest speakers. From that meeting, we were very happy and delighted to hear the wonderful 5-point proposals of His Excellency in order to help in the development of Philippine agriculture through PCAFI. First, in his proposal, is to have a bilateral workshop between PCAFI and business groups from India, coordinated by the embassy, in the field of agri-tech and agri-startups. The purpose of which is to be able to present the vibrancy of what is happening in India and also for them to learn some of the positive developments in the Philippines. The second is that through its embassy, they would like to see more educational visits by PCAFI and our membership to India once the situation stabilizes. The third is that they would like to focus on training by bringing some of the skills from India into the Philippines and bring trainers to conduct a training the trainers program. Fourth is to give modest grant funding from India for a few projects that will bring in maximum impact and where the projects can be scaled up and have these scalable projects replicated in the different parts of the Philippines. One of such possible beneficiaries of this program is that they are looking at our corn sector, where they are currently working with Pilmais through our PCAFI corn champion, Roger Navarro, and Rod Bioco for a possible pilot project. And lastly, His Excellency would like to see that India and the Philippines to have a strong dialogue with regards to market access and possibly for investment, because agri-exports and investments are also an area of interest for both India and the Philippines. There are areas where we can have respective competencies and we could look at this field with cooperation and mutual benefit. This last item is precisely the reason why we are having this conference today. Together with the Embassy of India in Manila and through PCAFI, we plan to hold a series of business conferences in agriculture. Our conference today on marine fisheries and aquaculture, shrimp and seaweeds, is the first of this series. The future conferences will deal with other sectors of Philippine agriculture and the value chain in order to bring new knowledge and technology to the sector, having in mind also the possibilities of mutually beneficial trade and business relationship and investments with India and the Philippines. The Philippines is an archipelago that consists of 7,641 islands with a total area of 301,000 square kilometers. According to a paper written by Mr. Napoleon Salvador Lamarca in 2017 of the Regional Fisheries Policy Network. The total area of marine waters, including our exclusive economic zone, is 2.2 million square kilometers. And the total length of our coastlines is 36,289 kilometers. The country's shelf and coral reef areas cover 18.46 million hectares and 2.7 million hectares, respectively. The country has almost 600,000 hectares of inland bodies of water, comprising of 338,000 hectares of swamplands, 200,000 hectares of lakes, 31,000 hectares of rivers, and 19,000 hectares of reservoir. The Philippines produced 4.4 million tons of fish and aquaculture in 2020, 53% of which are from aquaculture, mostly seaweed, milkfish, tilapia, shrimp, carp, oyster, and mussel. On the other hand, India fisheries sector produces over 7 million metric tons of fish and shellfish from capture fisheries and aquaculture, almost double of that produced by the Philippines, representing nearly 5% of the world's total fish production and about 7% of the total aquaculture production, with India ranking second in aquaculture and third in fisheries production in the world. The Philippines fishing industry contributed around 2% of the country's gross domestic product and 15% of the total Philippine agriculture output, with the fisheries sector providing employment to over 1.6 million people, 85% of whom were from the municipal fisheries and 1% from commercial fisheries, while the aquaculture sector employed 14%. The Philippine aquaculture has strong potential for further expansion and development. In view of the availability of our vast resources, as I mentioned, we have 338,000 hectares of swampland, 14,500 hectares of freshwater fish ponds, 240,000 hectares of brackish water fish ponds, 200,000 hectares of lakes, 31,000 hectares of rivers, and 19,000 hectares of reservoir. The Philippines sits at the heart of the Coral Triangle, which is the global center of marine biodiversity. About halfway between the provinces of Batangas and Mindoro, south of Manila, the Verde Island Passage boasts the highest concentration of marine species in the planet. Studies showed that its reefs are home for nearly 60% of the world's known fishes, as well as over 300 species of corals. Sadly, our inland and coastal waters are degraded and overfished. We have not invested enough in modern vessels and fishing gear to enable our commercial fishing fleet to go far into deep waters. We have not done enough to establish fish ports with appropriate dry and cold storage facilities to minimize post-harvest losses, which can go as high as 25 to 40%. I can cite more data about the Philippines and Indian fisheries and aquaculture industries, but I'm sure this information will be shared to us by our distinguished speakers and resource persons. Thus, in order not to preempt their presentations, I wish to leave this subject at this point. On behalf of the officers and members of PCAFI, I would like to thank our speakers for accepting to be our resource persons for today's conference. Sincere thanks also to His Excellency Ambassador Kumaran and to my good friend, First Secretary Nikishat Singh, for helping us to arrange for this B2B conference. Special thanks also to Ambassador Ramon Bagatsing Jr. of the Philippine Embassy in India and to all his staff for being present here today. Finally, thank you to our friends from India who are here with us today and to our friends from the Philippines who are interested in fisheries, aquaculture, shrimp, and seaweeds. Again, welcome and please enjoy our virtual conference. Thank you.
Thank you, President Danny Fausto, President of the Philippine Chamber of Agriculture and Food Incorporated. As mentioned by the President, we will be hearing two messages from our distinguished excellencies. Kumaran, Ambassador of India to the Philippines.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good morning to those of whom are attending from India. Namaste to all my friends and mabuhay to all my friends in the Philippines. It's a great pleasure to join you all this morning at this very important event. Let me begin by acknowledging my ever-growing gratitude to Ambassador Ramon Bagatsing for being such a champion of the bilateral relationship. I am in regular touch with him, and together we work on a lot of projects, and this particular idea about agriculture is something that we've been working on for some time. And I think that his contributions to this relationship are deeply valued and valuable for us, and we really thank you for your guidance, Ambassador. This conference would not have been possible without Mr. Danilo V. Fausto, the President of PCAFI. Your leadership and your guidance and your vision have been extremely inspiring, and we in the embassy and I personally are very delighted, including my colleague Mr. Nishikant Singh, who has worked very hard to put this event together, for your support and your very, very concise and insightful opening remarks, welcome remarks. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of Undersecretary, the Department of Agriculture, Ms. Cheryl Marie Natividad Caballero, for her presence today. Her presence and the support of Secretary William Dar are going to be critical as we move ahead in this journey of rediscovery of each other's agricultural capacities. And I say rediscovery very specifically because India and the Philippines had a very strong tradition of cooperation in agriculture. And we seem to have somewhere down the road lost that sense of working together. And I believe that with this sort of forum and with PCAFI's support and with all the colleagues in India, we should be able to recapture that spirit. I know Secretary Dar and Secretary Dominguez, all of them have a great appreciation of India's agricultural capacities. And I can tell you one of the doyens of Indian agriculture, Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, who was considered to be one of the leading proponents of India's Green Revolution, also has a great appreciation of Philippines and the Philippines' achievements in the International Rice Research Institute. So it is really a rediscovery of each other, and I thank President Fausto for his support. I'd also like to specifically acknowledge the presence this event of Mr. Philip Ong, the chairman of PCAFI, I was really impressed by your presentation and by your visionary insights into how technology can power this new partnership. So clearly, your contribution deeply valued, sir. Thank you so much for being here again today. And I would be remiss in not acknowledging the contribution of the Marine Products Export Development Authority of India, in particular Chairman, Shri K.S. Srinivas. And let me also, in the interest of time, not specifically refer to all the resource persons and speakers, but say that we are very delighted that we could assemble such a distinguished list of speakers from both countries. I would like to just make a few quick points because today's event is more in the nature of a sector-specific conference. But let me just say a few, let me make a few observations. The first observation I'd like to leave with you is that in the post-COVID world, health security will be very important, but equally important will be food security. We're going to be entering a world of some turbulence in economic terms. And one of the sectors that has performed well is the food sector, but we cannot take it for granted. We must work together to make our food more climate resilient, our supply chains stronger, and the productivity of our agriculture should be made more vibrant and dynamic. And we should use all our technological tools to make that happen. The second point I'd like to say is that when we talk about food and agriculture, typically there's a landward focus. People tend to look at crops, and fisheries, in a sense, somewhere along the line becomes a bit of a stepsister. But looking ahead, the blue economy is going to be one of the driving motors of the global economic system. And the blue economy is currently highly underutilized, in some areas overutilized. It is facing a lot of challenges. There are environmental challenges of various magnitudes. And here again, I think it is important for countries like India and the Philippines to share their experiences, work together, because as developing countries, our conditions and our constraints are very similar. And we have made a lot of progress in India in feeding 1.3 billion people and creating an agricultural export economy, which is a far cry from what we were about 50 years ago, when we were, largely dependent on food grain imports. And I'm in the past few months that I've been in the Philippines, I've been struck by the enormous capabilities of Philippines agricultural sector. And this is clearly a sector that is likely to contribute very dynamically to the Philippines in the future. And together, India and the Philippines have enormous opportunities to learn from each other and look at investment, look at trade, look at technology transfer, look at training and capacity building, and in general also advocate policies, both regionally, bilaterally, and globally, that support our sectors in a positive way. We've made a small beginning with this conference, but I'm also happy to inform you that we've been working with the Batangas State University in the context of implementing what we say, walking the talk. So we've been talking with Batangas to try and set up, the first conference has already happened, the scoping discussion between the Central Marine Fisheries Research Institute of India and the Batangas State University's Institute of Fisheries in Nasugbu. And I was very encouraged with the feedback of the first conference. This will involve a lot of research, joint projects, collaboration, sharing of information on various areas, including seaweed, which is of great interest to us, and various other activities related to marine biodiversity, as President Fausto mentioned, centering around the Bird Island Passage. There's an extremely broad canvas of cooperation. So I would like to stress on the importance of us keeping our minds open, both in India and the Philippines, to each other. And I say this with all humility that in some form or the other, we are looking at other markets more intently, at other partners more intently. And it is time for us both to change our mindsets, look closer to each other's regions, and together as two dynamic young democracies in the Indo-Pacific, India and the Philippines can craft a new story of bilateral engagement. And I'm very confident that with the support of organizations like PCAFI and with the broad agenda that we have, including leveraging technology, improving availability of finance and credit, mutual investments. For instance, we are looking very keenly at the potential of Philippines investments in the canning industry in India. You know, the Prime Minister has this new scheme which he announced last year, which he calls the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, which focuses on this sector in India. And in the Philippines, companies can look at investing in India in aquaculture through the automatic route with 100% investment in this sector. So I'd like to invite some of you to look at investment opportunities in India. And I'd like to also say that Indian companies who are part of this process may look at opportunities to invest and work together with Filipino companies to develop various sectors of the aquaculture industry here. The Philippines is well positioned to be also a regional exporting base. It is already doing very well in aquaculture and in marine products. So there's a lot of commonalities, apparent competitiveness sometimes, competition may be apparent, but I do believe that looking beyond the world market for fishery products is going to continuously expand. So we are never going to be in a situation where there is going to be a surplus of supplies. We're always going to be in a situation, newer and newer markets are going to open up. Consumption patterns are becoming more sensitive. We'll have to work together on issues relating to health, to sanitary conditions, and to using technology to better improve productivity. So I wish this conference all success. And I will look forward to working with PCAFI to set up all the other conferences in the course of the next coming months and years. It is going to be a long process of linking two agricultural ecosystems, but the promises are huge. And I think that working together, we can realize them. Thank you very much once again, and all the best.
Okay. Thank you, Ambassador Shambhu Kumaran. Okay, thank you. And we'll now hear the other excellency, the Ambassador of the Republic of the Philippines to the Republic of India. Please welcome Ms.
Thank you very much, Doy. Pleasant greetings from New Delhi, India, and pleasant good morning and hello to everybody. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers of this very important conference, the Embassy of India in Manila, through my good friend, the energetic, hardworking Ambassador Shambhu Kumaran, the Marine Products Export Development Authority of India, and proudly the Philippine Chamber of Agriculture and Food Incorporated. Really appreciate what you are doing now, and we hope that this will be a series of many conferences and meetings between ourselves. I would not want to talk that much, and I'm grateful for the slides that were presented on what can be done in India and what can be done in the Philippines. Amazing, and it really builds up an appetite for seafoods, especially the shrimps and the bangus or the milkfish. But bottom line, I hope at the end of the day, is that you have fantastic speakers, you have top-notch powerhouse industry captains, and I would be more interested in listening to them. And I hope that definitely some details will be arranged much later on after this meeting. But just to go straight to the point, we hope that at the end of this meeting, there will be a series of discussions on the B2B or on the industry level that our Philippine Department of Agriculture will be agreeable and will work on a cooperation agreement with India on fisheries, specifically on the following areas, but not necessarily restricted to these areas. On aquaculture, let's work on exporting between our two countries fish meal and fish oil. Let's exchange expertise, information and technology, and investments in aquaculture. Very important because India is, I would like to say, ahead or advanced in terms of digital technology. And we can share the Philippines' current technology. Potential sites for mariculture, the cultivation of fish or other marine life for food of commercially important species. On the tuna fisheries, this is a specific subject that will be discussed later on. India has 98% of India's tuna production comes from artisanal or small-scale fisheries, and only 2% from industrial or commercial sector. This is the information that I get, and I hope I don't mind if I will be corrected on this. And the Philippine commercial tuna sector is probably a little bit more developed because both in fleets and canneries, and this is something that the Philippines can work with their Indian counterparts. So what is the status now of discussions on possible cooperation agreement? As was stated earlier, there's a lot of ongoing agreements and working relationships between India and the Philippines on plants and crops and on animals. We import a lot of their beef, we import a lot of their milk, and we have some ongoing exchanges when it comes to crops and plants. But this is something new. This is a greenfield, I think, when it comes to the fisheries and aquaculture sectors. So what is the status of discussions for any possible cooperation agreement? So I have been informed that the Philippines Department of Agriculture has relayed their interest to have a working group who will meet with the Indian counterparts. And there is a personal note to this because Secretary Dar, our good secretary, worked here in India for at least 17 years. And as far as I know, he has Indian ancestry like me. So there is a personal connect between India and the Philippines. And let's take advantage of that while Secretary Dar is still there and while I am still here. And of course, with the Ambassador Kumaran being our pilot on this matter. So we hope that we can have a working group as soon as possible. According to the MEA here, we have to follow up that the Indian Agriculture Ministry will will work favorably soonest. No? This can be done on a G2G level, or it can be on an industry to industry level, and eventually, hopefully, on a B2B level. I saw the slide of the Philippine companies doing business and exporting their products in most part of the world. But there's nothing that they're exporting here to India. And I'm sure that we don't have too many Filipinos here, but I'm sure a lot of Indians who have been to the Philippines would like to taste our bangus or milkfish, which I also have here. So that is something worth considering on a B2B level. So at the end of the day, we hope that and pray that there will be a technical cooperation on fisheries. We hope that this could be initiated through an agricultural or fisheries technical working group. And thereafter, draft terms of reference for formal negotiations, which can be discussed later. This can be, I would prefer that this be within the agricultural or fisheries sector and not under the wider umbrella of the preferential trade agreement negotiations, which is ongoing right now. The PTA may take so long. There are a lot of items involved there. So, but we can focus on this particular sector and get it done as soon as possible. So, having said all of these things, I wish you all the best. I congratulate the organizers, and again, I pray that this will just be the first of a series of meetings, which will culminate in a communion between two maritime worlds with at least 1,000 years of shared history. So good luck, stay safe, and stay healthy. Thank you very much.
And ladies and gentlemen, we just saw some important insights that the two excellencies provided us. But rest assured, we have lined up also possible interaction on fruits and vegetables and livestock, particularly on meats and dairy products. So we'll be working more details on those two sectors right after this fisheries sector discussions. Thank you again, our excellencies, Ambassador Kumaran and Ambassador Bagatsing. At this point, allow me to segue into our discussions. And there are 3 sessions lined up for today. But allow me now to share with you some 2 house rules. Number 1, if the participants have questions or queries with the speakers and the resource people, please jot them down in the chat box. And after the 3rd session, I will be evaluating them and organizing the thoughts. And I will announce those questions and queries for our discussions. Number 2, Ambassador Bagatsing mentioned that there were shown earlier. Don't worry, these have been downloaded and will be available at the PCAFI Facebook and for your consumption. So those are my 2 announcements before I start formally with the is opportunities in fish canning industry and tuna. We have 2 magnificent speakers lined up for this afternoon. May I now first call on Mr. Cherian Kurian, Managing Director of HIC ABF Special Foods Private Limited of Kochi, Kerala. You have the floor.
Thank you for having me as a speaker in this important conference. So my association with the industry is 40 years, mostly in shrimp, and for the last 12 years I am associated with tuna industry also. So as you know well, the Indian seafood industry is closely about 70 years history it has, and the value-added seafood business is about 35 years old. But most of the value addition has come in the area of shrimp and both marine and now recently in aquaculture shrimp. But there is a huge opportunity in the business of tuna and sardine, which is not undertaken actively in India. The tuna fishing as such started about 25 years ago only in an active way. About 95% of the tuna from India is exported in the whole frozen form to other countries, mostly for canning. So there exists a huge opportunity to develop this industry, to exploit this industry much more. So there is a huge potential for the value addition in the area of tuna, particularly, and also other fishes like sardine and mackerel. We understand that Philippines has is one of the world leaders in the area of canning, and there is a lot for the business interest in Philippines to invest in the Indian market, Indian subcontinent, in the area of tuna, sardine, etc. So I want to give, first of all, thank you for this great opportunity. His Excellency Ambassador of India to Philippines, Mr. Shambhu S. Kumaran, His Excellency Ambassador of Philippines to India, Mr. Ramon Bhagat Singh Jr., Mr. K.S. Srinivas, IAS, Chairman, Marine Products Export Development Authority, Government of India, Mr. Danilo V. Fausto, President, Philippine Chamber of Agriculture and Food, Inc., Mr. Philip L. Ong, Chairman, Philippine Chamber of Agriculture and Food, Inc., and all the distinguished guests and friends in Philippines and in India. So as I mentioned, the tuna industry gives a great opportunity for investment by Philippine companies in India. And I have a small presentation to make here. Yeah, this slide, I hope you can see this page. This page is about, this shows the resource potential of tuna in India. This is close to more than 200,000 metric tons. It's mostly yellowfin and skipjack, which is ideal for canning. And we have two groups of islands around India, Andaman and Nicobar Islands in the east coast of India, and Lakshadweep Islands in the west coast of India. And this covers about 30% of our total EEZ. And recently, the Indian government has announced a policy to exploit the tuna resources in these islands, particularly Lakshadweep Islands. So it's the right time to look at the possibility of investing in India, either by the direct 100% FDI is permitted now, or through joint venture. This is the actual scenario as of now. This is the former slide was the resources, but this is what is actually caught. Only about, while the resources is about 200,000 plus metric tons, what is caught is only about 50. This shows India's exports market-wise. So if you come to the last column, in the quantity, the tonnage is varying between 35,000 metric tons to about 55,000 metric tons. The quantity is very low, so there is a lot of scope for future growth. And this slide is about India's export to Philippines. The quantity is not so large. Mostly it is the frozen fish, which probably is used for canning purpose. So there is a huge potential to export tuna and sardine etc., to Philippines for the purpose of canning also. But the more interesting and profitable opportunity is, if Philippine companies can come over and invest in India, either direct investment or 100% direct investment, or through joint ventures. This slide talks about the total world tuna import. So top of the list are United States of America with close to $2 billion import value, followed by Japan, Spain. Philippines is exporting around $255 million worth of tuna. This slide is about the import and export of value-added tuna and tuna-related species. If you notice, the quantity is very small, import as well as export. This is why I said there is a huge gap between the potential, available potential, and the actual exploitation. So there is huge scope for growth here. As I mentioned earlier, the government has really opened up the industry with 100% foreign direct investment is permitted under the automatic route. In both whether it is in all aspects of seafood industry. So the investment opportunity is so huge, and this is the right time because I want to say, in 1985 when the value addition of shrimp industry started, there was only 1 or 2 companies who came forward, but today there are close to 100 companies who are doing value-added seafood production. So today in India, there are only 4 or 5 companies doing canning in a very small way, I would say. Our company is doing canning, but it's doing, the volumes are so low. And I have visited some of the companies in Thailand, Ecuador, etc. I'm surprised and by the potential what India has, and we look forward to Philippines as we recognize Philippines as a world leader in the area of tuna processing. So I strongly urge, and I want to invite as a member of the industry, so to come to India and invest in India, either 100% directly or through joint venture. Thank you. And I want to also thank in conclusion, I want to thank the Ambassador of India to Philippines, the First Secretary, Embassy of India in Philippines, Mr. Nishikant Singh, Ambassador of Philippines to India, the Marine Product Export Development Authority, and the Philippine Chamber of Agriculture and Food, Inc., for organizing this virtual conference of its kind. And once again, I urge the leaders of the seafood industry in Philippines to seriously look at India as an investment opportunity and take full advantage of it. Thank you very much once again. Namaste.
Much, Mr. Kurian. And yeah, just to follow through. Just to follow through on the insights shared by the two excellencies earlier, foreign direct investments is truly a route that some of the potential investors from the Philippines can partake of. Thank you very much, Mr. Kurian. And we'll hear from you later if there are other queries that will be forwarded in our chat box. I hope you're still available after the third session, and
yes,
we'll communicate with you earlier on this. Thank you very much. All right. To hear now the counterpart from the Philippines, may I now call on the President of Frabel Fishing Corporation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Francisco Tu Laurel Jr.
Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, to the Chamber's officers, to my colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I represent the fishing and tuna fishing and tuna canning industry of the Philippines. Basically, the Philippines is a tuna fishing nation. We catch around 400,000 tons of tuna a year, both in the Philippines and in the Western Pacific. Let me just try to share some of my screen. Sorry about this. Well, for the commercial tuna fishing fleet of the Philippines, we have been using large-scale fishing vessels or tuna purseines, like in the picture depicted, for the last 60 years. Of course, the vessels, when we started way back in the 1960s or late 50s, was a lot smaller, but we now compete with the world's best tuna purseine boats from all over the world. While we also do aquaculture, we do also sardines. For the canning industry, the Philippine canning industry comprises of 7 canneries, mostly situated in General Santos City. The Philippines is unique in a way that we have both the fleet to catch the fish and the plants in the Philippines to process them in canned, pouch, or tuna loins for the world markets. The Philippines canneries and capacity, we have 7 canneries, major canneries in General Santos City with a total rated capacity of 1,030 tons per day. That would convert to annually about 250,000 tons, to process 250,000 of raw material per year. But the average capacity per day produced is about 750 tons per day, multiplied by 250 days a year. So annually, the Philippines processes an annual average of 187,500 tons of raw material tuna per year, of which 86% is canned and pouch, and 14% would be frozen tuna loins. For the Philippine canneries markets, as you can see, in 2019, 64% was to the European Union, since we have a 24% duty advantage compared to other nations. To the USA, 10%, and to the others, many Middle East, Japan, and Australia, 26%. But the figures vary, fluctuate between the three different areas or countries year per year. In 2020, exports to EU was 60%, and the USA increased to 14%, while the Middle East, Japan, and Australia remain at 26%. The domestic market of the Philippines of canned tuna is basically 8 to 11% of the total production. Philippine companies, the Philippine fishing companies and canning companies have also invested and put up canneries in Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, and Vietnam to utilize the local production or the local from the local fishermen in the waters where the plants are situated. So in essence, it is quite interesting for me to note that India has a potential of 213,000 metric tons of tuna annually, of which 40% would be skipjack and the rest would be big eye and yellowfin. So that is actually something worth looking into by way of putting up a facility, or at least worst case, buying more raw material to feed the existing factories in the Philippines or Filipino-owned factories in other countries around the Western and Central Pacific. Basically, the tuna fleet is still willing to expand where they will be welcome to fish. And that would be something that would be quite encouraging to look at in India if possible. And with that, normally the Philippine fleets would be willing to invest as long as they will be allowed to also to fish, if that is possible. Basically, that's the tuna industry, fishing industry, and canning industry of the Philippines in a nutshell. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for that very informative presentation. And the parting words of Mr. Laurel has given promise to the statement of Mr. Kurian earlier that there is an invitation for Indian companies to partner closely with Philippine companies to invest in fish in areas near India. We just hope we can cultivate this through the efforts of our embassy in India, through Ambassador Bhagat Singh, and of course, through the efforts of Ambassador Kumaran here. So that ends our two presentations on the first session. We now open the second session, and it's entitled Opportunities in Aquaculture and Shrimp. Dr. Manoj Sharma, the Director of Marine Aquaculture Private Limited, Surat, Gujarat. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me clear?
Yes,
Hello?
sir. You're clear.
Thank you.
You're
Yeah, and you
clear.
can also see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Thank
We
you.
can
Thank
see,
you. Thank you.
presentation.
Respected Honorable Ambassador for both the countries, India and Philippines, and the President of Chambers of Agriculture and Food, Philippines, and also Chairman MPEDA, India, and the distinguished dignitaries and the speakers. Thank you for this opportunity. It's a very good platform for both the countries to share the technique and technicality for the long-term sustainability of aquaculture in this country. So I have been given a chance to speak about the Indian shrimp farming scenario. So let me start with the Indian fact file, that India is definitely one of the most shrimp producing nations in the world, and one of the top most country. But if you see India, we have shrimp farming started with the black tiger monodon, and our monodon era was 1985 to 2009. And then because of seed issues and because of a lot of repeated diseases because of the wild seed, then we have introduced exotic species Pinus venami in 2009, and then you can see tenfold there was a shrimp production increase in India. And if you see the area, we have approximately, the scientific shrimp farming is close to 150,000 hectares, and also we have 40-50,000 hectares of the traditional, especially the belt of West Bengal and the Sundarban areas. And shrimp production per hectare average with the onset of Vanami, it has really gone up from monodon era. We used to produce hardly 1 ton per hectare to now almost ton, and where I am speaking from Gujarat, we have one of the very good productivity to 7.5 ton per hectare. And 80% of the shrimps farmers are below 5 hectare because the land holding to the farmers is very less. So we say 60 to 70,000 farmers are involved in shrimp farming in India. But we have our own limitations to the market, that our 90% dependency of our shrimp production goes to the export. And our domestic shrimp consumption is very less, and we can say it's very negligible. But this is a very, very important slide for these people, those who are looking from the Philippines in India, that what are the potential resources in India for the brackish water aquaculture, especially shrimp farming or marine fish or brackish water fishes. We have a 2.7 million hectares of fisheries, and a brackish water area which is suitable for shrimp farming is 1.2 million hectares. But the very biggest opportunity that we have in India is 8.5 million hectares of inland saline soils, which is highly productive. So total, we can say close to 9.7 million hectares we have potential to develop the brackish water aquaculture in India. And going back to the shrimp farming scenario, I will say that yes, from last few years we are the #1 shrimp producers. There is always a tight race between India and Ecuador. And 2019, we have produced close to 8 lakh tons of shrimp and 38,100 crore rupees of exports. We have a seed production close to 75 billion seeds, and a feed production in shrimp scenarios close to 2.0 billion tons. And if you see a very valuable segment is called shrimp hatchery scenario, as I told you already. You can see in the graph last few years, the hatchery business, we produce close to 75 billion seeds. 98% of hatcheries are in the East Coast. That clearly indicates the dominance of Andhra Pradesh in our shrimp farming sector. And West Coast, from where I belong, we have hardly 5 to 6 hatcheries. And around 20 hatcheries, if you see the top 20 hatcheries in India, they dominate the business, and 60 to 65% business is controlled by them. And annually, India imports close to 250,000 broodstocks, SPF broodstocks of vanilla. And when we talk about farming and then we talk about feed, the very important is also after seed is the feed scenario. Total shrimp feed production capacity in India is close to 2.5 million tons. Present consumption, if you see the production and consumption at an FCR of close to 1.8 to 2 general, we consume almost 1.5 million tons of shrimp feed. Total feed companies are 30 plus, but here also, if you see, 70% of the market is being ruled by Avanti and the CP company. So feed prices are definitely from last 2 seasons have gone up by 10% because of the shortage of the raw material in India. And shrimp farming scenario, as already discussed, 150,000 hectare, like ton, 55% comes from success rate, and total dependency upon the foreign market and domestic market is the need of the hour. So if you see shrimp farming scenario in a graphical, you can see 71% of the production of the shrimp in India comes from Andhra Pradesh, followed by West Bengal 10%, Odisha 7%, Gujarat, where I belong, to 6%, Tamil Nadu and other states are 6% share. And then the shrimp farming processing scenario, you can see Seafood Export Association is one of the most strongest association in the world. We have 612 processing plant with installed capacity of 33,500 metric ton per day. 350 processing plants are with modern EU approval, and 649 cold storage with holding capacity of 4 lakh ton almost per year. Total registered exports are 1,500 plus, and India exported the shrimp aquaculture is 38,000 crore rupees. If you see the global market share, where the India produces and markets the cell, 46-47% is US. China was very dominating from last 2 seasons, but this season slightly it has come down. But still, we can say 25 to 30% China purchases our shrimp. Europe followed, 10%, UAE 7%, and Japan. So you can say USA and China is our major market for our shrimp produce. But if you understand those who are those shrimp farmers are participating here and listening to my talk, because I'm a shrimp farmer by core, and You can see the evolution of shrimp farming practices in India. As you know, it started with monodon, with a very traditional and modified extensive till 88, 90s, and modified extensive started in 2000, semi-intensive, non-intensive. You can see the graphical presentation, how the evolution of shrimp farming in India. And I will just quick run through because time is less, but you can see the steps which are followed by 90%, most of the scientific shrimp farming in India, how it has been done from site selection to scientific technology, each and everything. I'll just run how I do, and my majority shrimp farmers, they do shrimp farming in India. You can see a very well a simple 5-hectare project where we have the ratio of 5% settlement to 20% reservoir and then culture. You can see a well-designed earthen ponds. You can see how a pond size looks, 0.5 to 1 hectare India. You can see the depth of the pond is maintained very good, more than 2 meters. You can see the proper slopes and drains we maintain in the earthen ponds. And as you know, the pumping capacity is the heart of the shrimp farming. And you can see the proper drying in between 2 crops. You can see the well-dried pond bottom. And you can see again how we do the pond preparation with tractors. And then you can see a well-prepared pond in our culture system. Then we very perfectly manage the 4-step filter system to avoid the predators and the disease occurrence, because you know disease and the new emerging disease is the main worrying sector for the shrimp farmers. Very because it is devastation takes place because of the disease. So it is very important to prevent the incoming disease vectors. And this is how judiciously we prepare the water 15 days before the stocking of the seeds. You can see the graph. And then prebiotics are applied into the pond, and then well-prepared pond. You can see this is my own farm. And then we do very good acclimatization of the seeds before the release in the pond. And you can see the natural productivity will support the good immunity to the shrimps. The aeration models we use, the water quality we maintain, the auto feeders are the new age feeding mechanism in India. A lot of efficiency of feed can be done, and we can reduce the FCR. You can see the check tray and health monitoring at our farm. The biosecurity, very simple biosecurity with crab fencing, bird net, which is very important to prevent the disease. You can see the animal face, dog fencing. Even our outlets are covered with the crab nets. You can see hand wash, food deep to prevent the disease. And then we harvest. You can see a very good vanami. We produce more 40 to 50 gram vanami in Gujarat. It is one of the very big size. You can see a well harvested material. You can see the quality. Then what is the future prospects? What we can do together with Philippines and India? There is a great room. As I said, we have more than 9.7 million hectares. So intensification is the need of the hour to go vertical, because if you go with the natural carrying capacity, there is an open system. A lot of disease occurrence is damaging the production. So intensification is the need of the hour. Diversification, because we cannot only depend upon vanami. We need to diversify into marine species and other viable shrimps. And definitely, last but not the least, the domestic market. So intensification, I said, should be a focus on the infusing the technology. Maybe Philippines, we can share the technology of intensification, how to produce shrimp from in a vertical production system. And then we can see this is what I have done. This is my own multi-space phase shrimp project, where to minimize the culture days in the shrimp farm, I rear the shrimp here in 2 phases. First phase is PL4 to PL15, and then PL15 to PL40. So first 50 days, the shrimps are reared in the complete indoor system. And finally, they are transferred to farm only for 50, 60 days. So by this technique, I mitigate a lot of risk management, because my shrimps are not open for 120 days or 130 days in the culture. So this is a rotation, and I can do double the crop in the year, and this I can also do double the production. You can see a well-established multi-phase indoor nursery and hatchery system of our company. You can see a video of a complete 1-minute video where it shows the complete covering of the area. Then you can see the indoor, how we rear first 50 days into a complete closed system. You can see in the bucket we have this 35-40 days PL which are transferred to our farm. Then the biggest advantage is completely isolation of the seed. This is free seed, and seven-step water filtration we follow to really completely biosecure seed. And with this, we can have a chance of farming. At least we can say 80 to 90% disease incidences can be controlled. Diversification, as I said, single species dependent in India is creating a very big problem for Banami. So focusing on other freshwater species and shrimp is the need of the hour. And in this scenario, we can collaborate with Philippines. And domestic market, as you know, India itself is a second populous country. We have 1.35 billion population. So value addition and shrimp processing is also one of the strength in Philippines. So we can collaborate together to impart the technique and skill of the value addition to the shrimps, and we can tap the domestic as well as the export project. So this is a small start done by me, that I have started a restaurant with 45 well-engineered menu for shrimps, exclusively farm-raised shrimps to be promoted in India. And this I started in 2019 with collaboration with National Fisheries Development Board. And you can see there is a chain of restaurant which we started, and we serve fantastic mouth-watering shrimp delicacy with Indian delicacy as well as some Oriental. So this is also amid COVID. There was almost like 12 months, there was a shutdown. So the domestic market has really picked up. People have become health cautious about eating aquaculture produce. So we also started door-to-door supply of Jingalala Fresh, a farm-raised brand, a high-quality brand to the end consumers. So as the Excellency Ambassador was mentioning about the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana. So this is the outlay of the slide, that we have 20,000 crore rupees outlay, a very, very promising scheme by the present government, and we are thankful to the government. And you can see that this government is very pro, and I'm also especially thankful to MPEDA and the Fisheries Department of Indian government, that this MPEDA team, especially headed by Srinivasan sir, is one of the very, very, very strong, very proactive and very aggressive team. And hope this is a very, very win-win situation for the sector, where government and the entire technical department, administrative department is pro for India. So I invite the businessmen, those who are interested to do some business joint venture in India, that they should come and take the advantage of this very, very promising Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana. So you can see the outlay of that. We have the motive and the mandate of this scheme is to double the production, double the exports, and double the farmer income. So last but not the least, I say that there is a concrete knowledge transfer between these countries can give a new direction to aquaculture industry between both these countries for the economic gain and sustainability of the farmers together. Thank you so much for this good opportunity to share my experiences in this August meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Manoj. And just a quick question, sir.
Yes,
was your move to service the domestic market, was it because the export market suffered a bit due to this pandemic? Just a macro picture on this.
No, definitely that is very true. But I will say this COVID has really opened up my eyes. But I was preparing from a few years to start domestic market, because I'm a strong believer that India has a 1.3 billion population. If we can produce and eat 14 million tons of fish, so why we cannot eat 8 lakh tons of shrimp? So it is the need of the hour for our people to realize the potential of our own market. So if India has to double the production, so they also need to invest in their own domestic market. And I see there is a huge opportunity lying for the domestic market in our country. That is what I think it's the very, very easy way to sustain our own shrimp farmers and support our sustainability to our individual shrimp farmers.
So a trend that's happening in our country, not only for fishery products, but for fruits and vegetables and some meat products as well.
And I strongly say in this meeting that fish is the future in India, and Philippine, you people have the art and technique to grow good fishes, brackish water fishes. And I personally will love to collaborate with any progressive fish farmer of your country to bring the technology in India to produce brackish water fish.
We'll have that in mind, Dr. Manoj. Thank you very much. Okay, to hear the Filipino counterpart on discussions regarding opportunities in aquaculture, may I now call on the Vice President of Alson's Aquaculture Corporation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Miguel Rene A. Dominguez.
Thank you. Dr. Sharma, thank you for that impressive talk on Indian aquaculture. I think the story of the Philippines in aquaculture is a little different from India, where majority of our produce, mostly in finfish, are consumed domestically. As the captured fisheries has been on a steady decline, the aquaculture industry has grown significantly over the past 3 decades. So I will attempt to provide this forum with an overview of Philippine aquaculture, which revolves around 3 major products. The first most produced product is milkfish, which we call bangus. It's grown all over the Philippines, both in brackish waters. It has the ability to be grown in pure fresh and pure seawater conditions. The second product is tilapia, which is grown in freshwater conditions. And third would be grouper, which is served primarily in the high-end restaurants in the capital. To give you an overview of Philippine aquaculture, milkfish contributes about 420,000 tons annually here in the Philippines, followed by tilapia at about 260,000 metric tons. Mr. Sharma, I think our shrimp production is just a fraction of India at about 60,000 metric tons. We mostly farm the Vaname variety. And just like India, the Philippines produce a lot of monodon in the 80s and 90s, but a lot of farmers, a lot of us, weren't successful and lost a lot of money. It was only in the past 15 years that we were able to shift to Vaname production, which for the production of Vaname shrimps in the Philippines, I would say about 90% of our shrimp production is consumed domestically. So that's one indicator of an opportunity in being able to increase productivity to hopefully be a participant, a player in the export market. Move next slide. So this is milkfish. This is the grown fish among aquaculture players. It's an important species in the Philippines. It's found in Indonesia. Taiwan also produces this, Guam and other Pacific islands. We grow this for about 150 days to marketable size of 500 grams. Milkfish production by culture system, about 3 decades ago, most of the fish were reared in traditional fish ponds. But as you can see, expansion primarily has been through sea cage aquaculture, which is represented by the light blue line. So marine sea cage aquaculture has grown significantly over the past 10 years as the development of fish ponds have been quite constrained due to a lot of environmental laws. And most fish farmers have gone to rearing and growing milkfish in sea cages. So this is a This is a typical aquaculture facility. This is where I live on top. This is our farm. This farm produces about 6,000 tons of fish annually. We grow tilapia primarily, vaname, and milkfish we grow in sea cages in the bottom. So each sea cage has about a diameter of about 20 meters, and we're able to produce about 30 kilos per cubic meter, so 30 tons for a sea cage in using bangus as a main crop. So compared to 1 hectare of fish ponds, we can produce about 12 tons on intensive level, although the more traditional designs will probably harvest about 3 tons. In the farm where I work, we're able to bring up productivity to about 12 tons per hectare per year using these fish ponds, growing primarily milkfish and tilapia. These are our products, which we sell both locally in the Philippines and in North America primarily, where Filipino communities reside. The second most cultured species here in the Philippines is tilapia. The tilapia is grown mostly in lakes, rivers, and fish ponds all over the Philippines. Philippines, over the past 3 decades, was known as the research center for tilapia, developed by GIFT in northern Luzon. And a lot of PhDs in aquaculture have at a certain point in their careers did research here in the Philippines for tilapia. So to give you an overview, we do about 270,000 tons of tilapia annually, fish ponds and mostly in sea cages. Now, shrimps is, as I mentioned earlier, may be a low-hanging fruit where we can look at some joint development. As a farmer, I tell people entering the aquaculture industry, you learn more by visiting other people's farms rather than going through the books on aquaculture. So as I mentioned earlier, Monodon was grown until we all lost our shirts in the 1990s due to the collapse of the export markets, primarily in Japan. And most of us farmers moved our production and started growing white shrimp or vaname. The Philippines does about 50,000 metric tons. And most of these are consumed locally in the Philippines. So I think this is one of the low-hanging fruits if many farmers can expand, improve productivity, look into the new technologies and equipment that is available in the aquaculture industry in India. I think this may be our farmers may greatly be benefiting from all the R&D and technology that Indian aquaculture can offer. So tiger prawns are sourced mostly from the wild in central Philippines. And vaname production, as you can see, has been steadily increasing, but not quite to the same degree and productivity and of Indian aquaculture. Another important species are mangrove crabs. This is found all over the Philippines, and most of this is exported around Southeast Asia. Government feels that this is also a low-hanging fruit where we can do some research and development, primarily for hatchery technology for sustainability as well. In the company I work for, we've been doing some R&D. We've been successful in shrimp and crab hatchery, and I feel this is something that can be scaled up to add value to many of the fish pond operators. as a multi-species or a polyculture for their fish ponds. So here's a graph of mango crab production over the past 10 years, which is on a increasing trend. Our company also operates the largest hatchery in the Philippines. It produces milkfish fry. We've also been successful in the past few years producing rabbit fish, which we have started growing in marine cages and using it as a polyculture species together with milkfish. The benefit of rabbit fish is that they feed on the algae that grow on the nets, which provide farmers a longer period between net changing. So we're also looking at scaling rabbit fish production up, and hopefully this might be one of the technologies that we can share all throughout Southeast Asia, where rabbit fish is quite popular in. So that's your milkfish fry. So to conclude, we do have a rich reservoir of resources. I also believe that Filipinos have quite rich know-how in aquaculture. I believe between the two countries, we can look into investments in finfish production, mostly in cages, shrimps and crab hatcheries. And as Ambassador Bhagat Singh mentioned earlier, that we might be able to benefit from equipment and technology that is now being utilized in the Indian aquaculture industry that can help farmers improve productivity through the use of technology for us to move forward in what we culture. So that ends my presentation on Philippine aquaculture. I hope it gave you an insight of the opportunities and what we have to offer.
Thank you, Vice President Miggs. And well, your conclusions really point towards exchanging technology. And as mentioned by President Danny Fausto during his welcome remarks, part of our PCAFI activities is to go to our partner countries and learn of the new developments in agriculture, in aquaculture, and fisheries. So rest assured that will be part of the agenda that we will follow through after the conclusion of this session. Thank you very much, Vice President Miggs. All right, so that ends our second session for this afternoon. Let us now open the third session, which is the opportunities in seaweeds. I now give the floor to Dr. Shan Mugham, Vice President R&D for Aqua Agri Processing Private Limited, Manamadurai, Tamil Nadu. Good afternoon, sir. You have the floor.
Yes. Yes, respected Mr. Shambhu S. Kumaran, Ambassador of India to Philippines, Mr. Raman S. Bhagat Singh, Ambassador of Philippines to India, Mr. K. S. Srinivas, IAS, Chairman MPEDA, and Mr. Nishikant, First Secretary, Embassy of India in Philippines, and friends. Good afternoon to you all. I will be talking about the seaweed farming in India, journey so far and scope for development. As we know, the global productions of seaweeds in 2018 was about 32 million tons, with values of $16 billion US. China and Indonesia contribute more than 80% of total productions, Philippines, South Korea, North Korea, Japan, and Malaysia are the other major seaweed producers. More than 95% of total productions are from 5 cultivated seaweeds, that is Eucoma, Laminaria, Gracilaria, Undaria, and Kappa picus. If you look at the seaweed production in India, it is only less than 20% of total world productions. Though there are no more than 800 species are reported to exist in the Indian waters, only 4 species like Sargassum, Turbinaria, Gracilaria, and Gellidia are commercially exploited. The natural collections of all these 4 species with little cultivated kappa account for just 60,000 to 70,000 fresh feed per year. In Philippines, the farming of Eucoma was started in early 70s and mid 80s in Indonesia, but in India we started only in 2000s. The PepsiCo company, the giant beverage company, bought the cultivation technology from the research institute called CSMSR. It is one of the primary research institute under CSR, and commenced the commercial cultivation in 2000s. In 2001, Tamil Nadu government had allotted about 1 kilometer to PepsiCo just to demonstrate the techno viability of the project. And in 2003, National Academy of Agricultural Science passed a policy paper 22 to promote the cultivations of Kappa picus in Indian waters to create alternative livelihood to the coastal people. The cultivation method has been well established and created attractive income to the fisher folks. Then in 2005, Tamil Nadu government passed GO 229 to permit the coastal poor as well as self-help groups to carry out the Kappa picus cultivations. In 2008, Aquaculture bought the business from PepsiCo, since Pepsi decided to withdraw from all the activities, and we created all the processing facilities in 2010 to produce biostimulants as well as carrageenan. In fact, the Kappa cultivation was going since it was started in 2001 to 2013. We had reached the highest production, that is 2,000 tons in 2013, but all of a sudden there was no crop fail occurred in 2014. Recently, Indian government has allotted about 600 crore to promote the aquaculture activity, including seaweed cultivations. This is the overall pictures of kappa cultivation in India. The operations of kappa picus farming is made very simple, so that one cultivator or fisherman can earn about 25,000. The investment cost is also very little, like but 70,000 one can start the cultivations. In India, Aquaculture is the only company which makes all the efforts in the field to promote the kappa picus cultivations. In fact, it acts as a nodal agency and coordinate with the government departments, NGOs, and the research institute, and expand the cultivations. Of course, there are other few companies also, but no, they don't involve in cultivation activity. They only buy the farmed seaweed. Yeah, Aquaculture has been honored with the CSR award for science and technology, innovations for rural development, for the efforts that we have taken. Sir, I'm audible? Hello?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
I'm audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Yes, sir. Sorry. Okay. So I was there. Now, Aquaculture has been awarded with the CSR technology for the efforts that we have taken to establish the kappa cultivation successfully and created alternate livelihood to coastal purpose more than 1,000 fisher folks. Mr. Abram Seth is the brain behind the entire development happened in seaweed front in India. It was he who conceived the idea of seaweed cultivation in India when he was in PepsiCo as an export director. And when Pepsi decided to withdraw from the cultivation activity, he took a retirement, formed a new company called Aquaculture to drive all the initiatives made towards the development.
Yes, if you look at the potential for Kapapa cultivations, it is huge. In fact, within 40 kilometer stretch, we had 20,000 rafts in 2013. But no, due to some reasons, we lost the entire crop. But if you look at the potentials in Tamil Nadu alone, we can say 200 kilometer. And if we consider 100 kilometer from other maritime states like Gujarat, Odisha, and Karnataka, it will be around 300 kilometers. That is less than 5% of our coastal line of India. With this 300 kilometer, I'm sure we can operate 3 lakhs rafts. That means we can produce, if you consider at least 100 kg dry weight per raft per year, we'll be able to produce about 30,000 tons of dry kappa. That is about 15% of total kappa world productions. Yes, if you look at the opportunity for seaweed production in India, it is actually great. Productions of phytoplankton like agar, alginate, carrageenan is already going on in India, but it is very little against the actual demand. Most of the our requirement is met through import only. We Aquaculture making grow biostimulants from mixture of red and brown seaweeds. Of course, there are other companies which import the seaweeds and manufacture biostimulant. The total carrageen demand per year is close to 2,000 metric tons, but only 50 to 60 tons are produced. Similarly, 30 to 40% alginate and agar are produced again as the actual demand of those phytoplankton. The market size of again biostimulant is very big. Like it is close to 1,000 crore per year. But we are making only 20% in India. The development made as a development of seaweed as feed, and it is very huge. And again, cosmeceuticals, nutraceuticals, packaging materials are other opportunities for future. Now I would like to say that the Kapapa seaweed farming is not actually going well as it used to be in 2012 and 13. There was no steady growth till 2013. But all of a sudden we don't know the reason, but expert around the world says that it could be due to the loss in the vigor of the kappa, because it was repeatedly used. Same game was repeatedly used for more than 30 years. So that could be the reason why we are not getting good growth rate. But we are making all the efforts to improve the vigor through biotechnological tools like polyploid and jump.
Excuse me, Dr. Shanmugam.
Yes.
Yeah. We're having difficulty. Are you sharing your screen or you're presenting some slides? I don't think it's appearing in our screens right now.
Yes.
Just click on share screen and then share your screen.
Sorry?
Share screen இருக்குல்லங்களா?
Yeah. Actually, no, I'm trying.
Click on the share screen and then share your screen. கீழ share screen ஒரு பட்டன் இருக்கு பாருங்க.
Yeah, it is there.
அந்த பட்டன்ல கிளிக் பண்ணுங்க. கிளிக் பண்ணிட்டு உங்க விண்டோஸ் ஷேர் பண்ணுங்க.
Actually, I will share this presentation to the organizer also. If they can help me in this regard, it will be very great. Actually, no, I'm not able to do it from my computer.
Yeah, Doi.
I have shared this presentation by email to Danny. If you
Yes,
can
yes.
Can you share it from your end?
President Danny, can your technician do this?
Nico, do you have that?
Dr. Shamangan,
Yes.
in the interest of time, since we're still fixing some of the technical difficulties, may I set you aside and then let's hear the presentation of Dr. Pedrosa.
Sure.
And then once you're okay already, we go back to you.
Sure.
For your remainder of your presentation.
Sure, yes.
All right.
Sure, yes.
In our chat box, there are already a lot of queries about your seaweed industry. So there are a lot of interests being looked into for your particular sector. So we look forward to your later presentation once
sir.
we fix the technical difficulties.
Sure, sir.
Okay. We'll see you later, Doctor. Thank you very much. Okay, since we have that difficulty, and we'll go back to Dr. Shamugan later, may we now call on the President of the Seaweed Industry Association of the Philippines, Mr. Alfredo Pedrosa III. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Salakit. To our guests, I will go directly to my presentation. To our distinguished guests here, His Excellency Ambassador Shambo Kumaran, Ambassador of India to the Philippines. Of course, to our Ambassador, His Excellency Ramon Bagat Singh Jr., to Undersecretary Cheryl Caballero, to our Chairman Philip Ong, and to our Team President Danny Fausto. And to our colleagues, friends here in the Philippines, and participants from India, a pleasant afternoon, those in the Philippines, and good morning to those in India. Now, after you heard it, I think my presentation is to a large extent been explained as presented by our Danny Fausto. I thank you for that, because I'm showing you some of our statistics that confirm the information that earlier shared. Now, now on your screen, let me share you the tale of the tapes, the seaweed industry. Our seaweed industry is one of the pillars of our fishery sector, having the commercial, the municipal fisheries, the marine, the inland fisheries, and the aquaculture. Of course, in our statistics, aquaculture remains the top performer in this area. If you will look at the value terms of value, then you will see that the aquaculture contributed much to the Philippine economy. Now, next in your screen, we'll now talk about specifically the aquaculture side. In terms of production, seaweed ranks number one, and it constitutes about 60 to 70% of production in terms of production volume. But in terms of value, the one that giving much push is the brackwaters section. Seaweed, for that matter, in our record, contributed not much. But if we will factor the contribution of our processing, which is an integral part of our seaweed industry, we are talking here of a multi-billion pesos or more industry, or $100 of million export. Now, we will drill down and concentrate on the performance of the seaweed industry. If you'll notice that Philippine production volume in terms of for over the last 5 years easily exceeded 1 million metric tons. This is actually a wet tons. And looking closely to the profile of our production, the ARRM, which is on the southern part of the Philippines, which is the autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao, which is we call now BARN, always consistently a major source of our seaweeds, and followed by Mimaropa, which is actually on the central side of the Philippines. Now, this map will show you the exact locations where the seaweed production or seaweed farming activities are taking place. Now, if you will notice that ARM plus more or less accounts for 40%, almost 50% of on annual Philippine production, and followed by Mimaropa, which is contributing 13% to the Philippine production. Now, let's look at the profile of our industry. The two major segments comprise our industry: the farming sector and the processing sector. The profile of our stakeholders would show significant number of people involved in the industry. In farm production alone, we have around 200,000 families, which can be translated to over 1 million people, Filipinos. Our trading in our value chain, we can see the marketing and the trading sector accounts for 20 to 30,000 traders. And on our processing sector, we have more or less 14 processors with a combined rated capacity, annual rated capacity of around 39,000 metric tons. Now, these are the resources that nurture and sustain our industry. The Philippine water, which occupies 220 million hectares, the shelf area at the depth of 100 meters, 18.6 million hectares. Then we have the ponds of around 200 fish ponds, 254,000, and a coastline length of 36,000 kilometers. Now, from these resources, how much we are devoting for the seaweed industry. Our available farmable areas which stands around 200,000 hectares along coastlines. The 200,000 hectares are basically located in the municipal water, which is within the first 15 kilometers from the shoreline. But the 200,000 essentially comes from around first 5 kilometers from our main coastline. And if we will to account the available area which is not yet tapped by our industry, we have around 50,000 hectares of available farmable area at the deep sea portion of our Philippine Sea. And if on a yearly basis, our utilization of farm areas stands at around 60,000 hectares, leaving us 140,000 hectares from the 200 hectares available farmland as a potential seaweed farms for future expansion and development. Now, on the farming side of our industry, we have really an abundance of seaweed species. Scanned in the tropical climate of the Philippine Sea, rests the marine fauna of 893 identified species of seaweeds. And from these seaweeds, 60 are suitable for human consumption. From this number, we are successfully culturing right now 4 major species: the Capapicus, the Eucheuma, Caulerpa, and Gracilaria. And while we still have the capacity and the potential to develop the culture for Halimenia, Sargassum, Porphyra, and Ulva. Porphyra is our local version of Japanese nori, for the information. Essentially, our culture method that we are employing in our seaweed farms are this one is the low bottom method, the wrap method, and the shallow long lines. But if you go to the deeper side of the sea, then this is normally the typical setup for our deep sea seaweed farming. The local seaweed production primarily caters to the raw material requirements of our domestic processor. And if you will see that in the flash on the screen, these are the extracts coming from our grown cultured seaweeds. In case of Caraginan, we have the Eucheuma and the Capapicus variety. Sargassum, we could produce extract called alginate, and Gracilaria, the agar. And these are the existing product applications that can be found in the market using our Caraginan, our produced Caraginan. We have for beverages, the processed meat, the confectionaries, even the cosmetic side and the pharmaceuticals. If we were to account the performance of processing sector of the seaweed industry, on an annual basis, we are contributing around, the industry contributes around 200 million to our economy. And that's why I was saying that this is a multi-billion industry in the Philippines right now. Now, let me go to the possible opportunities that we can offer for engaging in the seaweed farming activities. Number one, domestic demand exceeds available supply. The current situation in local seaweed industry still show demand for raw seaweed materials which is below the total requirement of our industry, of our processing sector. This can, in this situation, this would translate to a better farm gate price, renewed interest in seaweed farming, resulting in the involvement of more number of fisher folks. And this is something that we can sustain given the available seaweed areas that still untapped and remain idle. We have also the possibility of providing livelihood opportunity to displaced labor sector, particularly those affected by this COVID pandemic. In seaweed industry, innovation and farming practices becomes imperative, as this is to mitigate the possible adverse effect of climate change, and for our adaptation, climate change adaptation, this may call for relocation of seaweed farms to different portion of the sea, where water temperature is more conducive to seaweed culture. Our seaweed farm area is deemed to, as I said, adequate to meet this opportunity. Our industry is recognized as pioneer in seaweed farming. Thus, our farming practices are considered the international benchmark standard, being looked upon by other seaweed countries. In the ASEAN region, the Philippines is the undisputed acknowledged leader in seaweed business, notwithstanding the fact that Indonesia is the world's #1 in raw dry seaweed production. Our leadership bodes well in the ASEAN market integration. One of the areas that we're looking at possible opportunities is the consumer preference. Consumer preference governs marketing strategies. As exemplified in the growing health consciousness, organic products gain growing consumer preference. Karajinan had undergone the scrutiny of U.S. National Organic Standard Board as acceptable ingredient for organic products in response to certain clamor of organic products as allegedly health risks associated with degraded carrageenan. Luckily, the U.S. Department of Agriculture sustained our position, proving that our seaweeds for carrageenan are naturally grown and free from synthetic contaminants, which are incompatible with the requirements of organic products. We're also looking at the possible culture seaweed diversification. Over the years, the Philippine seaweed industry is more identified with the production of Kapapicus and Yucuma. This could be born by the fact that the Philippines, as a producer of carrageenan, ranks #2 in the production of carrageenan worldwide. And in terms of Kapapicus production, we contributed around 80% of the world's production for this type of seaweed variety. Now, it is about time that the industry is looking the possibility of looking at the possible diversification, and we are looking at the Gracilaria. Based on the latest analysis submitted to us by our National Seaweed Technology Development Center, our Gracilaria variety could provide the yield of 14 to 18%, gel strength of 380, and viscosity of that match 15 to 18 CFE. This is, unfortunately, Gracilaria, despite of this quality, our industry is not really right now in a position to provide or to tap the demand for this product in the international market because the production lagged behind, far behind from our Kapapicus and Yucuma. Our institutional supports from government, academe, and private sectors enable the industry to withstand the challenges associated with seaweed diseases, natural calamity, technical support, providing technical supports and product research, elimination of trade barriers, and market security. Our export performance as of 2020, last year, 2020, showed that our export to India for carrageenan stands at around 3% of our total export, and with a value of around $6 million. And these are the institutional efforts that giving us assistance over the years. This ends my presentation, and we think we're looking forward for close work collaboration with our friends in India, and the sharing of know-how and technical expertise as regards to Philippine production of seaweed. Thank you, and as we say it here in the Philippines, mabuhay. Maraming salamat.
Mabuhay. Mabuhay President Jimbo Pedrosa. Thank you very much. Very nice presentation. And I'm looking at our chat box. There are a lot of queries already. But before we proceed with that, I'd like to say hello again to Dr. Shanmugham. Are you ready to present the remainder of your
Yes, I am ready,
presentation?
sir.
Okay, you have the floor, sir. You have the floor.
Hello.
We can see you.
I have requested for keeping that presentation available for me. Yeah, sorry, it has come.
Okay.
Sorry for the inconvenience.
It's here.
All. Yes. This is my presentation. I think I've almost done, except few last slides. Could you see the slide, sir? Second slide, the world global seafood production.
Yes.
You could see.
Dr. Shanmugham.
Yes,
I can see. But can I make a request? Can we already move towards the latter part of your presentation?
Yeah, I will do it. Yes.
Okay. Not too much on the production.
I will do it, sir. I think this.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
This we have covered. And,
okay, we see it.
Yes, this we have covered. Slides are not moving.
Okay. Next, please. Next slide, please. Okay.
Yeah. I'm moving fast, but it is not moving.
Can you just tell me what slide do you want to show?
No, just last two slides.
This one?
Last two. Yeah, I think this is also no. Just go back, sir. Just go back.
Move forward.
Yeah, move forward. Sorry, move forward. Last two slides only we have to cover.
This one?
Total productions of copper during 2001 to 2010. Yes. So here, just one before sir. Go back. Yes, learnings and opportunity in India for seaweed products. As we have seen from this short presentation, that there is no huge potential for seaweed and seaweed products in India, since the commercial viability is already demonstrated, and the method has been proved well, and created attractive income to the fishermen, and there is again no support from government in terms of subsidy and also policy levels. And there is demand for new product like applications of seaweed in cattle and poultry feeds. So but what we are lacking right now is good germ blossom seed for making it in great level in India. As such, kappa picas has lost the vigor, and we are not able to do in great level. And again, we need some other seaweeds. Please, next slide. Yeah. So roadmap for making seaweed cultivation successful in India is we need only three things. First one is the improved vigor of kappa picas. It can be created domestically either through biotechnology tools like polyplide, as I mentioned, and somatic hybridizations. Or we need to import good germ plus from Philippines or Indonesia. Otherwise I don't think it will not happen in great level in India. And again, introducing other commercially proven tropical seaweeds, particularly Yucum and Gracilaria, to increase the growing options for cultivators. Here I would like to mention that Indian green revolutions was defined because of introductions of exotic varieties of rice and wheat. I think rice varieties came from Philippines and wheat came from Mexico. Those varieties contributed largely for the green revolution in India, and again great success, recent success with shrimp also because of introduction of wanami. So introduction of new varieties of seaweeds will create new dimension of productions of seaweeds in India. Other important thing is opening of Gulf areas. Right now, we are not allowed to do any seaweed cultivation in Gulf areas like Gulf of Mannar and Gulf of Kutch. I think seaweeds need protected area for protecting the seed as well as infrastructure, and also make it as user friendly operations. Without these three things like new varieties or a new strain of copper, introduction of e-commerce grazing area, and opening up Gulf areas, we will not be able to make it great success. If these are considered and implemented successfully, I am sure India can become third largest, or at least one of the major seaweed players in global seaweed market. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Shanmugam. And well, we experienced some difficulty earlier, but nonetheless, with your permission, can your presentation be uploaded here in our country,
sure.
and we can distribute it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
sure.
thank you for that.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, that ends our 3 sessions for today. And as I was checking our chat box, well, a majority, about 70%, are congratulating our speakers and resource persons. So a big hand for our 6 presenters this morning, this afternoon, for a very well and detailed presentation given to our participants. Congratulations to that. All right. And at this point, I'd like to, before I read some of the questions that were presented in our chat box. Number one, we have a board of trustee in our chamber. Is our sector champion for marine fisheries and tuna. And I'm referring to our board of trustee, Mr. Bombit Buencamino. And he would like to raise a question, particularly to some of the policies in India. So, Mr. Bombit Buencamino, you have the floor. Okay,
Yes.
Bombit, you have the floor.
Yes. Okay. On the presentation for the tuna, I was interpreting the presentation that India produces a lot of fish but do not have enough processing. That opens up a room for discussion of merging operations either way, either we can for them and they supply fish to us, or we invest in India processing facilities. I think the second option is rather difficult. First, I'd like to know, is India covered by the GSP plus privilege of duty-free export to the EU? Can I have an answer on that?
Sorry, Mr. Salakap, for butting
Yes.
in, but maybe I'll request MPEDA chairman to respond to this question.
Thank you. May I have a response from whoever can answer? Is GSP Plus a privilege that is granted to India?
Here's MPEDA.
Yeah, yes.
Sir,
Good afternoon, everyone, and we understand your question, and we will come back to you. Come back to you by afternoon, by evening. We will come back to you. It requires some consultation from the ministry, and then we will come back to you.
I raise, yes, thank you. I'll await the response because the outcome of, or the answer will greatly determine whether there will be a better arrangement that fish be exported to the Philippines, where we do the canning because we have GSP plus privilege of zero duty for export to EU. Whereas I don't know if we source, if the country of origin is India, there may be a duty impediment in the export, no, of canned tuna. You are please unmute your answer because it's you're muted at the moment. Can you unmute?
Yeah, yes, I'm listening. I'm listening.
No. Yeah, I cannot hear your response because you were muted. Anyway, you're listening, so you know what the question is. The second question I had for tuna was, why is tuna in oil? Because we have two products that are, but in the majority exported outside of the Philippines. No? Tuna in brine or tuna in oil. The duty of tuna in oil to India is at 38%. Why is so high? We don't know what you are protecting at the moment. That's the question.
Can I ask Mr. Cherian Korean to answer this question? Is Cherian there?
Yeah, I'm here, but this is a question regarding import of tuna into India. At the moment, we are not importing canned tuna into India. We are actually a producer and we are exporting and selling in the domestic market. So I think we need your offices.
That's the reason why you have very high duty, because it is discouraging imports into India because you are an exporting country. Is that right? That's the interpretation that I get.
Yeah, probably MPEDA can clarify this point and come back to you, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Doi, I think they have to look at their fundamentals before they can answer, no? So maybe we'll just ask this in another session.
Okay. Thank you. Bombit, again, thank you very much for the questions that you raised. And we will await the official response.
Doi, excuse. Is canned sardines part of this? Of this session? Sardines? I only heard about shrimps, but I did
It
not
should
hear
be
about
covered,
canned
yes, but
sardines and mackerel.
we can work. It's okay. We can work on the other commodities through exchanges, especially with the Office of Ambassador Kumaran. Okay. Rest assured, Bombay will
hear the question if it is
the other
regarding the import of canned sardine into India. My understanding is the same import duty structure.
Sorry.
Say again, please. Did not catch that.
I just want to request Mr. Buan Camino to flag his sardine question so that we are open to sardines as well. No discrimination when it comes to it.
Okay. All right. Granted.
What's your sardine question, sir?
Oh, no, I'm asking.
Yeah, we'll work on the details, Mr. Buen Camino.
Okay.
We'll work on the details.
All right. I'll postpone the question. I'm just saying that it is not included in any presentation here today.
Yeah. Yes. But we can work on the other commodities. No, don't worry about that. We'll work it out with the Embassy of India. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Bombit.
Okay.
The other queries are geared towards production of seaweed during this rainy season. Maybe Mr. Pedrosa can answer this maybe in another, as we share the emails or the chat box queries that were forwarded to us. The others are local questions like leasing of lands in the coastal areas in the Philippines. Therefore, we will forward such queries with the government units There are government units attending our sessions, but we will forward to the appropriate government units that can answer such. All right? And we still have around 2 more sessions to go. We have to hear some closing messages from our distinguished officers from PCAFI and the MPEDA. And rest assured, all the queries that were forwarded to us will be sent, number 1, with permission of our excellencies, to the Embassy of India here in Manila, and of course, to our Ambassador Bhagat Singh in India. Okay? And we will follow through on more details regarding the queries that were forwarded to us. Also, with permission from the resource persons, a lot of people are asking for copies of your presentation. If you will allow, we will share this with the participants who are requesting for such. Okay? So, at this portion, I'd like to invite Inivas, the chairman of the MPEDA, to deliver his...
Thank you. His Excellency Ambassador Shambhu Kumaran, Indian Ambassador to Philippines, and His Excellency Ambassador Raman Bhagat Singh Jr., Philippine Ambassador to India, and Mr. Danilo Fausto, President PCAFI, and all other distinguished guests, all the participants from both the countries. Very good morning and good afternoon to everyone. And first of all, my sincere thanks and appreciations to Embassy of India, Manila, especially the Ambassador Shambhu Kumaranji, for taking this initiative for starting this virtual business conference on marine fisheries and aquaculture. You can see so many people have participated, nearly 200 people, around 190, 195 participants, and from both the sides. This itself shows the success of this, and we are able to understand the needs and our strengths of both the countries. Till so far, let me frankly tell you, we were only concentrating on US market, European market, Chinese market, and all those such markets only. But now, today is a big eye-opener. We have a very great scope for exporting to countries like Philippines and other Southeast Asian countries. So this is really an eye-opener for all of us, and we can understand that there are a lot of strengths and opportunities from Philippine side, and it's like a news to us. It's a big knowledge for us that Philippines has tremendous knowledge, tremendous capacity in seaweed technology. And then I'm very happy to see there is an industry. I mean, there is an association, Seaweed Industry Association of the Philippines for seaweed alone. Whereas for us, seaweed is a very small part. And then there is a lot of scope here also. Very few companies are doing seaweed technology here. And there is definitely a lot of scope for cooperation between India and Philippines. Similarly, I'm very thankful to Dr. Manoj Sharma for his comprehensive presentation about the shrimp culture, shrimp sector in the country. And I'm sure the Philippine side would have understood the strengths of Indian shrimp industry. And then there are a lot of opportunities. I mean, we see, it's really, we came to know today that even though the tiger is our strength, tiger prawn is our main species, but we left the tiger and then we have borrowed an exotic species from the Pacific. But I'm very happy to know that Philippines has stuck with its own species, still cultivating tiger prawns, and then maybe only Wanami is doing in a very minor area. If you want any help in Wanami production, please come to India. We are here to help in Wanami production. We are here to supply brood stock and all that. So any cooperation on Wanami production, we are very it's welcome from our side. And we also came to know that Philippines is very strong in sea cage, whereas sea cage culture is still in the nascent stages in India, but Philippines is in a very advanced stage. And then and there also a small contribution from our side. If you want any technology on mud crab, we have the technology. We have an R&D wing connected to with the MPEDA, so we can provide the technology to the Philippines. I'm very happy to say that very recently we got a patent on the mud crab technology from Indian Patent Organization. So this also we can definitely share. We can also train if there is any interest from Philippine side. And seaweed, of course, as I already mentioned to you, there's a lot of learnings. There's a lot of learnings, and then we can take it forward. And once again, this is only a beginning of this dialogue, and then I think that this dialogue has to continue for another several times, and then there should be one-to-one meetings between the processors from Philippines and the players from India and vice versa. And I'm sure there will be definitely a lot of scope for further cooperation. And then I also thank Mr. Cherian Kurian for giving an excellent presentation on tuna. We have excellent, we have a lot of scope for tuna, but unfortunately, due to so many reasons, we are not able to tap it. So there is scope, and then there also, if we can get some cooperation, some support from Philippines, and there also we can definitely we can have a win-win situation in tuna also, tuna and canning industries and also. So these are all the takeaways from for me. They're all the learning points from this conference, and really we have to take it forward. Frequent meetings are required, and I'm sure there will be definitely there will be a cooperation between India and Philippines in the days to come. And once again, I thank His Excellency Shambhu Kumaranji for taking this initiative. And then because of this initiative only, I think we are able to have this almost 2.5 hours of discussion with more than 150, nearly 200 participants from both the countries. It's really a great initiative, and definitely we will take it forward, and we will definitely take this cooperation to a newer level. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Srinivas. And you said it. The key words are technology exchange, farm visits, investments opportunities, new technologies. Yes, we will follow through on all those key words that you mentioned. And now let us hear from the chairman of the Philippine Chamber of Agriculture and Food Incorporated. And I call on our chairman, Mr. Philip Ong.
Good afternoon, everyone. His Excellency Shambhu Kumaran, His Excellency Ramon Bhagat Singh Jr. And I would like to especially acknowledge the presence of Deputy Speaker D.V. Savillano, who has graced our occasion. Also, I'd like to thank the support of everyone on the board of PCAFI for allowing fisheries to be the first topic in this conversation between India and the Philippines. I was a bit hesitant that I pushed my sector to be the first exchange, but happily it has turned out to be very successful, because I think in my career of probably 50 years in fisheries, I've divided it equally between the marine side for about 25 years and the aquaculture side for about 30 years. And most of my friends in the industry, like Mr. Theo Laurel and Mr. Alon Tan, Mr. Ben Lim in the deep sea sector, as well as the colleagues in the aquaculture sector former Governor Miguel Dominguez, who after much arm twisting agreed to speak to us. And also, of course, the champions like Ms. Chingling Tangco, no, of the Fisheries Aquaculture Board, who supported this effort for today. I think that there are many potentials, not just in the fisheries sector, but in the whole agri industry platform for continuous exchange, where there are technologies and equipments that India is way ahead of us. We ask for your support and generosity to share. For those who in the Philippines who have a very good foothold on the tuna, canning, as well as seaweed industries, we are also very willing to share our knowledge and experiences with the industry of India. Hopefully, this is a start of a very good conversation and cooperation between our countries. And I thank all of you for attending and being part of this very first B2B kickoff between PCAFI and India. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And for the last part of our program, there's a certain fellow from the Indian Embassy whom President Danny keeps on linking with as to how to organize and push this inaugural activity of ours. And may I now call on our hardworking guy in the Indian Embassy. He's been organizing, orchestrating all of these. For his final words, Mr. Nikishat Singh. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Doy. So, a very good afternoon to Ambassador of India to Philippines and Ambassador of Philippines to India. Sir, for giving time from their busy schedule for addressing this event today. And a very good afternoon to the President PCAFI, Chairman PCAFI, Doyu, and the distinguished panelists and participants from India and Philippines this afternoon. It is my privilege to deliver this vote of thanks for the very first sector-specific business conference, which has been jointly organized by the Embassy of India in Philippines and PCAFI. I take this opportunity to express my heartfelt gratitude to all the support which has been given by the MPEDA in organizing this event in terms of identifying the resource speakers from India. I wish to extend my thanks to the panelists from India, Mr. Chiran Korean, Mr. Manoj Sharma, and Mr. M. Shanmugam, and distinguished panelists from Philippines, Mr. Francisco Tui Laurel Jr., Mr. Miguel Rene A. Dominguez, and Mr. Alfredo Pedrosa III. So we may agree that we have made a great start, a very thoughtful start with this opening session of the series of, maybe we can say, a sector-specific sessions to be jointly organized by Embassy and PCAFI. I again thank everyone for an active engagement and participation in this event. And we hope that this conference would lead to a greater B2B engagement, as you have said, that one-to-one meeting, business meets, and can lead to larger and increasing engagement in terms of trade and investment on both sides. So with this, I thank everyone. Namaste and Malo. Thank you. Over to you, Doy.
You and me, Nishikant, don't worry. So that ends our program for today. As we say, mabuhay and namaste.